You spent your life saving, but one wrong move before or during retirement could unravel it all. Today, we're diving into the overlooked mistakes that silently drain your wealth and showing you how to dodge them. If you want to retire smart, not scared, this episode's your playbook. As always, I'm your host, Ryan, and today we're joined by Bob, Nick, and Tyler. So let's get the conversation going, panel. I want your takes on the biggest landmines clients walk right into without even realizing it. Tyler, want to get us kicked off?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I think two come to mind for me. One is being too conservative in retirement. A lot of times people have been saving their whole life. They have income coming in. They get this big pile of money. They get to retirement and they're so scared to lose it. They throw it all in a checking account or a savings account earning, minimal interest when that's when we need to plan. That's when we need to make sure they don't run out of money in retirement. The other one is taking Social Security right away. People hit 62 and say, hey, I'm going to take it now. Why not? Free money. Let me get to it. I've paid into this system. I want to take my money. But good planning, we can take it at full retirement age or even delay it depending on, how the plan shapes up. It can be thousands of dollars per month difference between 62 and 70. So going through that, making sure, you're taking Social Security at the right time and not blowing that up, I think is important.
Yeah, Tyler, to jump off of that, I think those two tie together really closely too, right? The conservative nature of saying, hey, I don't want my investments to just disappear, but also I want extra income coming in because they don't quite understand that transition from saving to spending and how to properly do it. And some of that just comes through with the planning, right? Like having an appropriate plan in place and being able to say, hey, I've thought about this thoughtfully ahead of time versus just going into it blindly and thinking that they're going to figure it out there at kind of the I won't say the last minute, but certainly just at the start of retirement.
Yeah, and on that planning side, like the plan by itself is obviously super important, but I'd say what's even more important or a bigger mistake that people make is not surrounding themselves with a good team to bounce ideas off of and hold them accountable. And so that can look like a lot of different things, right? Like people doing it themselves and just not seeking advice when they probably should. Or they go and seek advice at the wrong place, which is, I would say, the biggest landmine. And, there's so many people out there like financial gurus who aren't licensed at all on social media today. You have good old CNBC and Jim Cramer telling you to buy and sell every 3 seconds. But also just like, honestly, the broker dealer model of yesteryear and how our industry originally started was just going to people who are going to sell you something and then never talk to you again. And the retirement road is a long path that you have to have, or it's best to have people walking alongside you every step of the way, not just at the beginning.
Yeah, and I think, Nick, what you're alluding to is annuities, right? And I'm going to kind of take both sides of that, right? Because I do think annuities can be helpful to retirees as they're looking at kind of their retirement. But the landmine there is doing too much of that, right? Like having too much tied up in that. And that's to your point where it's coming from, hey, if you just have a broker or somebody that's just trying to sell you some product, that can put you in a lot of trouble, even if the product itself could be helpful to your plan. Putting it in place for the wrong reasons can be that landmine that could, kind of push people off course.
One kind of a new one popped into my head while Nick was talking. I feel like the sharks smell the blood in the water when people hit retirement. So a good plan to have is get your team early, right? 10, 15, 20 years out of retirement. Make sure you're surrounded by those good people before you hit that big life event. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Because, if the first thing that you're doing when you hit retirement, whether it's 60 or 62 or 65 or 70, right? Because people, for all kinds of different reasons, retire at different ages. But if you're just going and trying to find that person, and again, Tyler, to your point, emotionally, you think you want to be more conservative, that opens you up to, hey, do this thing because this is going to protect you from XYZ risk. And this product is going to solve all your problems. It's going to be that silver bullet. The truth is that there are no silver bullets. There is nothing that is going to give you all the upside and none of the downside, like be the perfect solution. In our mind, in my mind, the best solution is to kind of have that plan in place and be able to just work through the plan as you get to that retirement age versus trying to figure it out on the fly.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
who are looking for an advisor right at retirement for the first time, they don't know what they don't know, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you get these product salesmen who, you know, live off of fear and drive that fear into these clients and scare them into things they probably shouldn't be in. So,
Mm-hmm.
having these talks earlier in your career, talking to different financial advisors, finding that good match, again, super important.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is like we've had many clients forward us things that they've gotten, right? Like whether it's emails from the good old investment newsletter industry, which is just an entertainment industry, so they don't have to follow any regulations and they can just overpromise everything, but also just harp on retirees' fears, right? Like do this or you'll never get your social security, or do this and XYZ catastrophe. And those calls to action like aren't necessarily like immediately scams, but they're definitely just preying on people. And so that's one of the bigger ones right there.
If you don't have that team in place before you get to retirement and you're getting inundated with all that stuff Nick just talked about, what's a good way to weed through all that noise and try to figure out, like, can I trust this person? Can I not trust this person? Should you look for fiduciary, CFP? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and certainly can be difficult to navigate because in our industry, there is generally a low bar for what you need to call yourself a financial advisor. But what I would look at as my advice is have these folks been doing it for some period of time, right? Do they have the credentials, the background that shows that they've kind of invested in it? And then I think asking if they're a fiduciary is a good question. I will say that word in and of itself has gotten a little bit muddied up, I
Watered
would
down.
say, over the years. Watered down. Yeah, how watered down, muddied up are opposite, but I think in this case we're trying to mean the same thing here. But it certainly does not have the same weight. You just want to make sure you understand, how are these people compensated? How does that change how they make the decisions that they make and the direction that they give you? But also make sure that whoever it is not just focusing on one section of your financial plan. Make sure you're looking at taxes, that you're looking at health insurance, that you're looking at investments and, distribution strategies, social security, all of it all together, not just one subsection of what it means to be retired.
Yeah, be weary of overcomplication.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you get trapped into something, all these promises, but maybe you don't understand and it seems complicated and they sell the complicatedness of it to scare you. And so, generally a financial plan, it is understandable, why you're doing this thing or doing that thing, how you're invested and how that's going to play out in your plan. When people throw these guarantees out or say, well, that's there's a lot of moving parts to this product and you may not understand this part. That's when you should get a little nervous when chatting with advisors.
Yep.
Something we hear a lot, I think, maybe not on our side of the fence, but as consumers, maybe as people who are uneducated, is, put 10% a year into your 401k for life and you'll be set when you go to retire. Do you guys think that holds true? Should you be taking a more thoughtful approach, maybe diversifying what kind of accounts you've got your savings in?
Certainly. So what we see for a lot of folks is as a landmine in retirement is you get to retirement, whether that's at 60 or 62 or whatever age, and every single one of your investment dollars is in your pre-tax 401k or IRA. And all of a sudden now you need to start taking income. Everything is going to get taxed at ordinary income. So it's just like the same taxation that you've been dealing with your whole life. Whereas if you took some steps in the 3, 5, 7, 10 years prior to retirement or longer, right? And built out what we call tax diversification, that would be a great thing, right? Because you want to have money in your after-tax brokerage accounts, in savings accounts, in your IRA, potentially in your Roth IRAs as well. And the more flexibility you have there, the better positioned you are for a successful retirement, because you have decisions for how you take money out of these accounts, and you can limit your lifetime taxation on those monies.
Yeah, I think we're seeing flexibility being important in retirement now more than ever. Clients saying, "Hey, I want to semi-retire at 50. How can we get to that point?" And I'm okay. I know if I have all this money packed in a 401k or an IRA, I can't touch that till 59 and a half. So I think the taxable brokerage account is gaining in popularity and makes a lot of sense for people who are on this track to semi-retire or get out of the 9 to 5 grind and do something on their own, but still be able to pull some income from their investments.
So yeah, the tax diversification obviously is a big one. I mean, even in my personal life, like we look at that and the flexibility for funding like my kids' account, right? Like, do I use a 529 plan, or does it make sense to use taxable brokerage account? And like there's pros and cons to both of those things. And even with the new proposed tax bill, which who knows if that gets approved or not, but there could be even a new type of account for kids that is essentially a baby Roth IRA. And so adding just, it seems like they're going to be adding more pieces to the equation versus subtracting. And so just making sure that you're weary of all the different options that are out there is a good thing.
Yeah. I think one thing we can spend some time, I'm not sure if it's necessarily a landmine, but I know it's a myth out there. And the peers I talk to is, I make too much money, I can't contribute to a Roth IRA. And I think there's some negative connotation around the idea of a backdoor Roth IRA. Maybe you guys can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler and I just talked to someone yesterday on that, right? Where he client was like, "Hey, I just make too much money and I can't contribute to a Roth." That was like literally word for word what he said. And I was like, "Oh, well, do we have some good news for you?" He's like, "My Roth will never be greater than $100,000 because I can't contribute to it." Where his words? And I was like, "Well, there's some ways to do that." So
Yeah,
go ahead, Tyler.
I think the tax planning piece is huge there, right? We touched on tax diversification. But there are ways to get money into Roths, into taxable brokerage accounts. And yeah, that's one of the things when we're talking with that client, we're going to build out for him during the tax planning process, because he also is one of those people who wants to be flexible at 45. So, how do we utilize each bucket and be efficient there?
Yep. And that's I think the point there is navigating that landmine, right? Like a tax landmine, we'll call it in retirement, is best done
Now,
multi-years prior, right? It's best done now, right? Like the old, there's a old proverb, right? That the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today, right? So even if you're at the point where you feel like, hey, I'm already ready to retire and I don't have some of these things in place, that doesn't mean that you can't start today to start to avoid the landmines, because the goal is that you're retired for 15, 20, 25 years, however long you're going to live after you finish up working. There's still plenty of time to get lots of tax work done, to Tyler's point, to continue to invest for the long term so that not everything's so conservative. Like, even if you're at the point of retirement, doesn't mean the planning should stop. It should just continue and continue to build and look forward on that for, the years to come.
Plenty of people are living a third of their life in retirement, which is just mind-blowing now. You can't forget that last 30 years, right? You got to plan for that when you don't have an active income coming in.
Which brings it back to why you need a team, right? If you just meet with somebody at the beginning of that process, and then you have 30 years of flying solo, or like having to go back to the salesman to get sold something else midway through that, like that might not be the best approach. So.
And to be clear, right, not everybody needs a financial advisor. There are plenty of people that have the interest, the temperament, the desire to want to track these things and handle them on their own. I would still say that those folks should still seek some guidance as far as like directionally, am I thinking about this right? or, watching podcasts, listening to videos like this just to get those ideas. But for those folks that maybe don't have the same desire, like having a good team behind you, in our opinion, is, and I understand that it's coming from us, but it's invaluable, right? And I have some of my clients that they've said to me, the only thing that they want is to not have to worry about money and put that worry on me. And so, if we can pull the landmines, or if an advisor can pull the landmines from that, kind of clear, be the minesweeper, I think that can give a lot of peace of mind and make retirement a much smoother ride than it otherwise might be if you're just kind of doing it on your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, we've seen it before, the best gift for the spouse that's not financially acute, right, is to make sure that you have a team already lined up. So that way, if something happened, then, it's not your spouse that doesn't know anything about finances, the one having to deal with everything.
All right, great conversation, guys. We're going to go ahead and transition into our exit segment, which this week it's going to be your retirement motto in 6 words or less. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tyler to give us your motto. What do you got, Tyler?
I'm going to be short and sweet here. It is plan ahead. 2 words, baby. Plan ahead. As we've talked throughout this conversation, start this process 20, 30 years before retirement. That's going to make things a lot easier when you actually get there.
That's a good one. I'm actually a little jealous that you took that one, but I'm going to go with 3 words, and maybe the "and" doesn't count, but patience and simplicity. And, if just having the patience to let the plan run as it should, and keeping it simple and not overcomplicating it just for the sake of overcomplication. So I'm going to go with patience and simplicity.
Well, those are nice, but mine is use leverage. Okay. just kidding. No. All right. So I'd say I really like our little slogan that we have going on our website right now, and I think it's exactly 6 words, so it works out. The simple, explainable, and aligned with your values. And I like that because you can use that same framework for every area of your life, right? Not only your financial plan or your retirement, but making sure that whatever thing you're about to endeavor into, make sure that it's simple, explainable, and then, you can hold yourself accountable and be like, is this actually something that I value or that I want to dedicate these dollars and time and energy into?
Love it.
Nice.
Or use leverage, either way.
Yeah, that one's good too.
All right, I'm going to, Bob and Tyler, that wasn't bad, but I'm going to have to give it to Nick, coming back to the old balance motto. So I'm going to pass it off to Nick. Nick, go ahead and give it to us. You're going to be the winner of the week, and you get the 60-second rant to close us out.
Sweet. I thought I won because of the leverage, but that's okay. I think this time I'm going to rant about things that other advisors do that absolutely drive me nuts on the conversation of having a great team around you. So I think one of the first things that I see is the typical broker, and it's not just from the insurance world, it's from the investment world, where they would just sling mutual funds that have a 6-7% front end commission and a trail baked into the product. And it's crazy. The funds that they're selling, you can get the same exposure in a handful of other ways that don't have any of those fees or commissions or anything. So I think there's you're much better off doing it yourself versus doing that. Right? Let me just level set the playing field there. But the other thing, probably the worst thing I've ever seen, is an advisor who was packaging. It was called a CIT or UCIT, basically think of it like a mutual fund, and it was just a large cap equity mutual fund, but it matures every year, and there's a commission tacked onto it. So they sell the product of US large cap, that's all it is, nothing fancy inside, and it expires after a year. So then the client has to go back to the broker, and he sells them again, hits them with another 6% commission, just goes and goes and goes. And so I've seen that recently. It's crazy to me that that's even legally allowed. It's terrible.
Well, avoid that landmine as well would be my closing remark there.
Yeah, that's a pretty good rant. I think we can all agree with that one, Nick. So thanks for joining us for another week. This has been Retirement Landmines with Ryan, Bob, Nick, and Tyler, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, everyone.